We're going to be talking about Bob Iger over at Disney and his new pay bump. Yeah, not a cut, a bump. We're going to be talking about TikTok, the very app we're on right now, under new ownership, and what that means. I know you all experienced that outage that we had yesterday on TikTok. We'll be getting into that and what's causing that. We're going to talk about the TikTok deal. What does that mean for creators? What does that mean for making money? Because I want to know. We're also going to talk about Substack, talk about Elon Musk, who is currently being sued, or at the very least investigated by the European Union. And then we're going to finish it out with Kanye West. The Kanye West apology that came out of nowhere. All right, so we're going to let it go for just a little bit longer, and then we're going to get into it because there is so much to discuss today. And our first topic is going to be this whole TikTok ownership deal. Actually, no, our first topic is going to be Bob Iger, just because it's short, it's quick, and that man pisses me off. So we should talk about that first. Okay. Bob Iger, CEO of Disney, got a pay raise. Don't we love that? Don't we love when people who already make obscene amounts of money make more money? We're reading an article today from The Hollywood Reporter by Alex Weprin. I'm sorry. Talking about Bob Iger's 2025 pay raise. He is now making He is now making Bob Iger is now making $45.8 million annually. Let's get into it. Walt Disney co-CEO Bob Iger saw his 2025 compensation rise to $45.8 million. I'm trying not to actually lose my mind, but this is insane. This is objectively insane. $45.8 million as one's salary. There are people who don't even make $1 million in their entire life. First of all, Bob Iger has had a string of misses here recently, right? We've been talking about previously how Disney is really struggling to connect with younger audiences, specifically like the kind of mid-teens to mid-20s male audiences. They're not resonating with Star Wars the way that they used to. And then outside of that, we have talked about how Disney has been really unoriginal with their programming. We're tired of seeing live action remakes, but it's not even actually live action because you still did most of it in CG. It's basically just Moana reanimated in a different way. We're tired of that. People don't want to see live action remakes anymore. People don't want to see reboots of franchises. People don't want to see The Rock in a wig. People are tired. And Marvel, the whole Marvel thing, superhero fatigue, the fact that people are tired of watching Marvel's very formulaic films at this point. So it's a little bit of a surprise to me that Bob Iger is getting a raise when he hasn't actually been doing a great job. If I had to guess, part of the reason for that raise, though, might be because of this whole OpenAI deal that was brokered recently. So we'll see. We'll keep reading. Disney filed its annual proxy statement Thursday, setting its annual shareholder meeting for March, including a vote for board members and an advisory vote on executive compensation. Iger's compensation package was comprised of a $1 million salary. I'm sorry. I'm going to have a mentee be about it every time I see it because it's unhinged. It's an unhinged amount of money. But good for you, Bob. $21 million in stock awards, $14 million in option awards, $7.25 million in non-equity incentive plan compensation, and $2.6 million in other compensation, including for security. This is what be getting me sometimes, is when people talk about other compensation. What does that mean? What does that mean? They give us a little example here when they say for security. So what I'm wondering is if it's just like the benefits package, basically. I'm sure that they've got crazy health insurance. Apparently they've got security. Maybe, who knows, maybe they're paying for his house. That's kind of the crazy thing once you start to get at this level of earnings is you don't even know what all they're providing and adding to their benefits package. I wouldn't be surprised if Bob Iger had a private jet that was being funded by Disney as part of this $2.6 million in other compensation. For comparison, Iger's 2024 package totaled $41.1 million. We're going to scroll back up just to make sure we've got that number right. 45.8. Yeah. Why did it jump several million? Again, my only guess is maybe this OpenAI deal, but girl, inflation ain't that bad. Like, inflation ain't that bad. He got more than what he needed. Continuing on, the filing also disclosed compensation for other top execs, with the CFO, Hugh Johnston, seeing his pay package fall to $20.2 million from $24.5. Now, isn't that interesting? So other people are taking pay cuts. It's just not Bob. It's just not Bob. That is interesting. That's interesting. Chief Legal and Global Affairs Officer Horacio Gutierrez seeing his pay rise slightly from $15.8 million to $16.3. That's interesting. As always, the actual take-home pay that executives receives depends on the company's share price, given the heavy tilt towards stock compensation, blah, blah, blah. It's also worth noting that essentially all of Disney's top executives sitting below Iger in the org chart have inked new contracts with the company in the last few months, ensuring a degree of stability for whomever is selected to succeed Iger, which we'll see, right? Because they've been saying this for a while now, that somebody is going to succeed Bob Iger. Nobody has succeeded Bob Iger yet, so I'll believe it when I see it. It doesn't really look like you're that dedicated to getting him up out of here when you just gave him an extra, like, $4 million, but that's just my personal opinion. The Succession Planning Committee is focused on positioning the new CEO for long-term success at the company by, among other things, surrounding the new CEO with a team of senior executives who can work together to lead the company into the future. In a letter to shareholders, Disney chairman James Gorman wrote that the succession planning remains a top priority and reforming that we currently expect to announce the appointment of the company's next CEO in early 2026. Well, we are in early 2026 right now, and nothing has been announced, so I guess we'll see. Per the proxy, the board succession committee met 5 times in fiscal 2025, with Iger occasionally being consulted too. In the course of these discussions with Iger, the board evaluates potential candidates and discusses development plans for potential candidates, the company wrote. Iger has been mentoring internal candidates, the filing notes. So sounds like they want to keep it in-house. They want his successor to be somebody who's already within the Disney brand. It's probably not going to be the CFO since he took a pay cut, but I will be interested to see who it's going to be if they're trying to keep it in-house. Let's see. The proxy also indicates that Disney's board has been developing a compensation plan connected to the succession's news and designing an executive compensation program aimed at driving the creation of long-term shareholder value. Okay? So let's really dig into that last sentence there, because I think we've got some secrets kind of hiding in there. Designing an executive compensation program aimed at driving the creation of long-term shareholder value. So what I hear in that, right, if we break this sentence down, if we go backwards, right, we're saying that we're trying to drive the creation of long-term shareholder value. And doing that successfully is how the executive's compensation is going to be determined, which we already kind of know that that's how a lot of these companies work. But maybe that's not fully how Disney has been working, because the fact that they're acting like this is a new thing makes it sound like Bob Iger is getting paid what he gets paid regardless of performance, which might make sense with the whole fact that he has gotten a pay bump that the public does not think that he deserves. So we'll see how that goes. At this point, I don't really care who's in charge of running Disney, as long as they're interested in telling good stories and telling interesting stories, in not rebooting things and making live action things over and over and over again because the people are tired. I was tired. I'm tired of this, Grandpa. Look at that. That's a Disney reference. That was it. Yeah, that's what we want. We want good things, original things. We're tired of this. Okay, on to our next headline. We are talking about TikTok. TikTok. Oh, man. So if you use this app every day, like most of us do, then you know that yesterday things were really weird because there was an outage as TikTok is transferring ownership to its new US-based company. Things were pretty messy. I don't know if any of you guys posted anything yesterday. I posted 2 videos yesterday. They both sat at 0 views. And when I had a friend try and look at my video from their account, it was not up. It didn't exist. This morning, things are still a little weird. My videos still say 0 views, but when I go into them, they do have likes and comments. So I don't think we've fully solved the issue yet. Speaking with the techie in my life, this is very common and to be expected when something as large and complex as TikTok switches hands, switches servers. You can expect shortages and outages. We should probably expect for there to be more, honestly, as this happens. So I've actually got 2 articles that we're going to read today about the TikTok switch in ownership because there's a lot going on. So we're going to talk about the terms and conditions, and we're also going to just talk about the deal itself. Let's start with the deal so we can know who the owners are, and then from there we'll talk about what this means. TikTok deal adds new US owners. Here's what this means for users. This is an article on Mashable by Amanda Yo. I really like what she did here because she really tells us who these new owners are, and I think that's going to be helpful context because right now everybody's just like, who owns this place? We know it's in American hands. We know it's in the hand of an Ellison, but what else do we have going on here? TikTok will officially remain in the U.S. for the foreseeable future. A new majority U.S.-owned company has been established to continue running the popular video sharing app in the country and has announced some very U.S.-centric changes coming to the For You page. I already have things to say, but we're going to keep going. U.S. politicians pushed for TikTok's Chinese parent company, ByteDance, to sell to American owners for years. These lawmakers claim that the Chinese government spies on American users via the app, though there is no evidence that this is actually happening. We do have a lot of evidence, actually, of American government spying on American people, including the fact of, let me stop. And accused TikTok of manipulating its algorithm to present content that is sympathetic to Palestine and China. If I may, what's really interesting here is that, first of all, they could be correct, right? Maybe that is going on. Maybe those things are being manipulated. But what also could be going on here is that the algorithm is driven by people's interests. The algorithm is driven by what people want to see, what people want to interact with. And Palestine and China are 2 very divisive topics. First of all, most Americans are on the side of Palestine. We have the data to show that. This is not me being political. This is not me pushing any sort of agenda. The data shows that most Americans are on the side of Palestine, or at the very least, they're on the side of both people getting what they want. A lot of people do not want this occupation to continue on. So it makes sense that the algorithm would be showing a lot of content that is sympathetic to Palestine because that is actually what the people want. But, and this is the second part, even people who are against Palestine, because it's such a divisive topic, because it brings up so much emotionally, those people would still engage with that content. And what happens when you engage with something? The algorithm gives you more of it. So to me, I'm like, if we want to accuse TikTok of manipulating content, we can do that. Or we could just use our brains about how these algorithms work, about how rage works, how baiting on the internet works, about how your algorithm is a combination of the things that you enjoy, but also the things that you can't stand. And most people feel very strongly on one side or the other. There's almost nobody who feels neutral about Palestine. Moving on. Now it seems these politicians have gotten their way. Called TikTok USDS Joint Venture LLC. That name has no riz. That name has no riz. There is nothing cute about that name. Try again. The new company will take over ownership of TikTok in the US, as well as the American operations of other ByteDance apps such as CapCut and Lemonade. TikTok USDS Joint Ventures. Like, why did it take so many syllables for me to say that? I feel like you didn't even try. Mandate is to secure U.S. user data, apps, and the algorithm through comprehensive data privacy and cybersecurity measures. Read TikTok USDS Joint Ventures announcement. You see how much breath it's taking me to get through it? It's insane. Now we have to say it again. TikTok USDS Joint Venture LLC is owned by a plethora of different investors, most of which are American, while TikTok's Chinese parent company ByteDance retains 19.9% of the U.S. joint venture. 45% is evenly split among three managing investors: U.S. private equity firm Silver Lake, U.S. IT company Oracle, and UAE investment firm MGX. A string of predominantly American investors own smaller chunks of the remaining 35.1%, including investment firm Dell Family Office and Susquehanna International Group affiliate Vasmir Strategic Investments. How TikTok's new user owners will impact how TikTok's new U.S. owners will impact your For You feed. TikTok USDS joint venture stated that U.S. user data will be held in Oracle's U.S. cloud servers. We knew that this was coming already. I talked about this in my long-form breakdown about the LSNs, who they are, what they want, what they're doing. We talked about how Oracle will be holding the U.S. cloud servers and also will be in charge of the algorithm. If you don't remember, the LSNs are close personal friends of Donald Trump, and they are also the ones who are currently trying to buy Warner Brothers Discovery, even though Warner Bros. Discovery doesn't want to be bought by them and has rejected them more than 8 times. Back to the article. Indicating that this will ensure it's secure. TikTok previously did the same, investing $1.5 billion to quarantine U.S. users' data with Oracle in an initiative dubbed Project Texas. Even so, this wasn't enough to reassure U.S. lawmakers and stave off the sale. And I think that, when this happened, it felt very telling, right? The concern was United States privacy, the privacy of citizens, making sure that their data is private and secure and not in the hands of Chinese government. China complied with that. China put servers over in the United States, managed by the United States, in order to make the data safe. And for some reason, that wasn't enough. I think we all know what the real reason is there. I think it's because it's not about the data. It's never been about the data. It's been about control and getting their hands on TikTok's algorithm, which is one of the, if not the, most sophisticated social media algorithm that has ever existed. The social media algorithm on TikTok has done so much in terms of helping with community organizing, helping get out news that mainstream media does not want to share. It has been influential when it has come to previous elections. That's what we're here to get. It has nothing to do with data. Data was just the palatable excuse to get our foot in the door when it came to presenting this argument in the first place. And right on cue, next part of the article says, TikTok USDS joint venture will also use U.S. user data to retrain and update the app's famous content recommendation algorithm, also keeping this new version in Oracle's cloud. Other countries will presumably continue to use the TikTok algorithm without these U.S.-centric updates. Let's talk about that. What does a U.S.-centric algorithm mean? I have ideas about what they want it to mean, but what does that actually mean? What makes something more US-centric than what's already going on? Because me personally, I don't be seeing a whole lot of videos from people outside of the US. A lot of the stuff that I see is in the US. So I'm seeing American content creators. I'm hearing about the news that's taking place in the United States. So I don't think that the issue is that the content itself is not originating in the US and is not about the US, right? I think what the problem is that the content does not align with the goals of the US as, an imperial state built on violence and conquering. But what do I know? What do I know? I think a more accurate way to describe this is not that the algorithm is not US-centric, it's that it's not patriotic, maybe. Certainly not in the way that a certain group has recently defined what it means to be a patriot. Some could argue that the true definition of patriotism is actually being met because my algorithm, at least, definitely encourages me to want the best for my country. And that's all I'll say on that. It seems fair to assume that this retraining may attempt to address politicians' aforementioned concerns regarding the type and tenor of content that people in the U.S. see on TikTok. The company further noted that it will safeguard the U.S. content ecosystem by taking control of TikTok's U.S. content moderation and trust and safety policies. Let's sit on that one for a second. The company further noted that it will, quote, safeguard the U.S. content ecosystem, close quote, by taking control of TikTok U.S.'s content moderation and trust and safety policies. So, I mean, I hate to sound like a broken record, but you're taking control of content moderation and trust and safety policies. So by taking control of content moderation, right, that means that you're taking control of what does and does not get served to people. And trust and safety policies means we are defining what is considered appropriate material, what is considered appropriate topics, what are considered what's considered dangerous speech, what is considered hate speech, what is considered discrimination. We have seen over the past few years that all those definitions have been shifting. The shape of discrimination, the shape of hate speech has been molded to fit certain political agendas. And we would be remiss to not point out that this new version of TikTok being stewarded by one specific political party, if we are being honest, is going to probably be using those newly molded definitions as they approach content moderation and trust and safety policies. Fortunately, these changes don't mean that TikTok users in the US will be completely cut off from the rest of the world. TikTok USDS joint venture, again, just lame name, horrible name, states that content from US creators will still be shown to users in other countries. However, it remained silent on whether US creators would similarly continue to see content from the rest of the world. There it is, you guys! There it is! There it is right there! There it is! Has remained silent on whether or not US creators would similarly continue to see content from the rest of the world. It's Cardi B. It's right there. It's right there in writing. Y'all. I almost feel like I have nothing to say because what else is there to say? We are potentially facing a world in which we are going to be on an island. At least when it comes to TikTok, we're going to be on an island. But I mean, let's extrapolate here, right? Facebook and Instagram are both owned by Meta, right? Which is Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg in the past has been critical against Donald Trump and has stood up to Donald Trump. But we've all seen the transformation he's been undergoing the past year and a half. You know, he started working out. He started eating raw meat or some shit. I don't know. Now he's got an underground bunker and he does what Donald Trump says. Wasn't he like on Joe Rogan or something? He's really trying to get into like the manosphere now. So those two sites are taken care of. He is under this administration's thumb. Then we have Twitter/X, which is under the control of Elon Musk. And even though Elon and Trump went through a very, very messy public divorce, Elon's politics still remain the same. So when it comes to that site, we don't really need to worry about things popping up over there either. In fact, people have mentioned over the past year how certain topics have been extra censored over there, how certain things are not going trending at all. So really over here, the last major social networks that we have are Snapchat and TikTok. Admittedly, I don't know much about who owns Snapchat, but we now see who owns TikTok. We're going to be on an island when it comes to social media. We're going to be on an island. People love to draw the comparisons of like, this is like China. They're censoring us like China. And I understand why people reach for that because it's an easy and accessible reference. But the fact is, this is not like China. This is like the US. This is how this country has always been. We had maybe a stretch of like 30 to 40 years where we seem to be on a steady incline. But we have regressed, and we've regressed to what we were before. Unfortunately, this is not unprecedented. This is very precedented. As such, it wouldn't be surprising if US users saw fewer pro-Palestinian TikToks on their For You feeds in the future. TikTok's US new owner is led by CEO Adam Presser and CSO Will Ferrell, not to be confused with the actor Will Ferrell, both of whom previously worked at TikTok. The company will also have a 7-member majority American board of directors, including TPG Global Senior Advisor Timothy Daddles, Susquehanna International Group Managing Director Mark Dooley, Silver Lake co-CEO Egon Durban, Oracle Executive Vice President Kenneth Luke, and MGX Chief Strategy and Safety Officer David Scott. Famously, Singaporean TikTok CEO Shu Chu will also serve as a director at TikTok USDS joint venture. So that's the team. That's who all is assembled. May the odds ever be in our favor. Amanda Yo, you did that. You did that. You did that. You wrote the hell out of that article. Thank you for your contribution. Okay, so that's part one. as if things weren't feeling spooky enough. Let's go to part two. But give me just a second because it's getting dark in here. Hold on, let me adjust my light. The sun was killing me earlier, and now it wants to play fair. All right, we're good. TikTok's new terms and conditions explained as U.S. deal finalized. A lot of people have been talking about these new TikTok terms and conditions. A lot of people are very scared. And admittedly, I'm not here to talk you down. But let's dive into them and see what's actually there, see if we should actually be afraid, and, you know, see what's real. So, TikTok new terms and conditions explained as U.S. deal finalized. This is an article on Newsweek written by Sam Stevenson. TikTok has introduced a new set of U.S. terms of service, just as the United States and China have finalized a deal reshaping ownership of the platform for American users. Are we surprised? No, we're not. They probably were working on these terms and conditions for months. They probably were working on these terms and conditions before the deal was even close to being approved, you know? As we mentioned when we were looking at the previous article, this deal is about so much more than just social media, right? It's not just about wanting to protect data and to, shape culture, help the content creators. It's not about that, right? This is about shaping culture on a much bigger, much larger, much scarier scale. So am I surprised that the moment it changed hands, they already have these big terms of service? No, I'm not. All right. Why it matters. The legal and structural changes effective January 22nd, 2026 come alongside a sweeping agreement requiring TikTok's U.S. operations to shift to American-controlled ownership, ending years of uncertainty over the app's future. What to know? Congress passed and the Supreme Court upheld a 2024 law requiring TikTok's divestment from ByteDance, making corporate control and algorithm access central national security concerns. This deal and the updated terms aim to address these issues. We've already talked about what the real issues are. We'll continue. The social media video platform has now finalized agreements with major backers, including Oracle, Silver Lake, and Emirati firm MGX, to establish the new TikTok US joint venture. Oracle, Silver Lake, and MGX each hold a 15% stake as the joint venture's managing investors, joined by additional backing from the investment firm of Michael Dell, founder of Dell Technologies. ByteDance keeps a 19.9% share in the new US entity. Yep, we already knew that. Tip top. Actually, I could go for one so bad right now. TikTok's updated terms of service make clear that American users are now contracting with TikTok USDS Joint Venture LLC. So many syllables just to say nothing. The newly created and majority US-owned company that will operate the platform domestically. The terms, last updated on Thursday, govern access to TikTok's apps, websites, features, software, and related services. We're going to skip some of this because it's all stuff that we already know. Updated terms also reaffirm key rules, including age restrictions. Users under 13 cannot access the full version of TikTok and are instead directed to a limited under 13 experience. Has anybody ever seen or used the under 13 version of TikTok? Because I didn't even know it existed until recently. I didn't know it existed until I started researching this transfer of ownership. What's going on there? I would love to know. I would love to know what they're feeding the children. The document also lists additional policies, such as the privacy policy, community guidelines, music terms, and intellectual property policy that may apply depending on how a user interacts with the platform. I'm going to hold my comment until we get further. For everyday users, the most immediate change is the updated contractual relationship with TikTok USDS. The platform remains available in the United States, and its rules regarding content, intellectual property, and the types of services covered are laid out in the newly updated terms of service. Users retain ownership of their content, including AI inputs and outputs, while granting TikTok a worldwide, irrevocable, royalty-free, assignable, and sublicensable license to use, adapt, and distribute content to operate and improve the platform, including developing machine learning models subject to settings. So, TLDR, if that was too much for you, these new terms and conditions basically say that you own your stuff, but TikTok and its owners can use your stuff basically however they want, including training and feeding AI. It's one of those things where it's like, we kind of already knew that, right? At this point, it unfortunately feels like anything that you create anywhere on the internet is going to be used to train AI. But still sucks to have it said out loud, still sucks to have somebody say, we're about to use your shit for AI. Generative AI rules, output is delivered as is, users are responsible for inputs and outputs, and the terms prohibit representing AI output as human-generated or removing watermarks or authenticity markers. Now, let me tell you what is so interesting about that. We know, right, again, because the Ellisons and Donald Trump have been very clear that they are besties, and the fact that TikTok being under American ownership was something that Donald Trump pushed for. He manufactured this from beginning to end. So interesting that they have put in their terms and conditions, right, that you cannot represent AI output as human generated. You cannot remove watermarks. You cannot try to play with anybody's perception of it being authentic, of it being real. Was it not the White House? Was it not official government entities who just got caught posting those doctored images of a black woman on their Twitter profiles? Did that not just happen? And when they were posted, they were not posted with any sort of warning trying to make it clear that those things were not fake. Let's look it up, shall we? Let's look it up because we're all here. I mean, I don't love The Guardian, but it's the first one, so we'll use it. Look, there it is. Yeah, this happened. White House posts digitally altered image of woman arrested after ICE protest. Guardian analysis shows images are the same, with Nikema Levy Armstrong looking composed in the original, but sobbing after alteration. The White House posted a digitally altered image of a woman who was arrested on Thursday in a case touted by the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi to make it seem as if she was dramatically crying, a Guardian analysis of the image has found. The woman, Nikema Levy Armstrong, also appears to have darker skin in the altered image, which, you know, best case scenario, we just chalk that up to like AI is messy. AI oftentimes will just like randomly change things because it's not good at being consistent. Worst case scenario is they were trying to make this woman look worse by making her skin darker because they're racist. But she a baddie, and skin tone does not make somebody look worse. I digress. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem posted an image of Armstrong's arrest at 10:21 a.m. on Thursday, less than an hour after Bondi's announcement. The image shows a law enforcement agent, face blurred out, escorting Armstrong, who appears to be handcuffed. Armstrong, dressed in all black, appears to be composed in the picture, which, okay, you can't see it here, but I always think that's interesting. Oh, here we go. That's so interesting, right? That, like, we're covering up the law enforcement's face, but her face gets to be out and on display. Okay. A little more than 30 minutes later, the White House posted another image of Armstrong's arrest in which she is crying. The White House press secretary, Carolyn Levitt, reposted the image. The image posted by the White House is altered, a Guardian analysis found. And it's not just the Guardian. Other people have examined this too. It has been doctored. It's just clear, okay? If anybody was born like within the past, I'm going to say 29 years, right? Like if you've been here long enough to really be a digital baby, be a digital native, you can tell that this is AI. It looks like AI. It looks like slop. It looks made up. It looks fake. This is the same administration that apparently is now going to be owning TikTok. This is the same administration that's going to own a site that is full of millions of Americans' faces, voices, interests, behaviors. And I want to make sure that we really underscore this. Asked whether the image had been digitally altered, the White House responded by sending a post on X from Kaylin Dorr, the Deputy Communications Director. Quote, "Yet again, to the people who feel the need to reflexively defend perpetrators of heinous crimes in our country, I share with you this message. Enforcement of the law will continue. The memes will continue. Thank you for your attention to this matter." Close quote. There are so many reasons why this is dangerous, but one of them is the fact that how do we define a meme? What is the definition of a meme? How do we define what a meme is? From what I gather, right, this photo was not posted with any sort of disclaimer or disclosure that it was a meme. So how is somebody supposed to intuit that an altered image posted by an official government account is a meme and not incredibly dangerous propaganda? If a government account were to post an altered photo of somebody who was not committing a crime, but in that altered photo, they were committing a crime, what does that mean? Is that a meme? Okay, well, if somebody goes out and perpetuates violence against that person because of the meme that they saw, who's held responsible? I am never interested in being alarmist. I don't think that alarmism is very helpful. But I am interested in being pragmatic. I am interested in looking at things head on and honestly. And this is concerning. Okay, back to the main article. Other changes that are coming because of the TikTok US ownership. Advertising and personalization. TikTok may customize content and ads based on user activity and third-party information and may use names and profile images in connection with interactions with sponsored content without compensation absent separate agreements. That's interesting. TikTok says, quote, "You agree that we can customize ads and other sponsored content from creators, advertisers, and partners that you see on and off the platform based on, among other points, information we received from third parties," close quote. I have an idea about what this means from like a very dystopian perspective, which might not be what it means, but we are in the middle of a dystopia. So, may customize content and ads based on user activity and third-party information. We're going to start with that first chunk, right? What's interesting is that this isn't just saying that they can customize ads, but also content. What does that mean? Does that mean that like the videos that I post, the videos that you post, TikTok can take those and customize them? It appears that that may be the case based on user activity and third-party information. Now, when things are normal, that means based off of the fact that like your cookies say you like to be on Fashion Nova, you know, like that means we're gonna make sure we serve you some Fashion Nova ads because we see that you got a full cart. That's what that normally means. But I would be not surprised if user activity and third-party information is much more than just our shopping behavior, if it is our political behavior, if it is based off of the content that people interact with on TikTok. And may use names and profile images in connection with interactions with sponsored content without compensation, absent separate agreements. This is the part where I'm like, skirt, as if I weren't already skirt. At this point, I'm like, look, I done ground the tires into the ground. There are tread marks behind me. May use names and profile images in connection with interactions with sponsored content without compensation. What I can only guess we're describing here is if you are interacting with sponsored content, if you're commenting on it, if you're saying that you enjoy these things, maybe if you even make some content yourself in connection with interactions with sponsored content. Yeah, I think my guess here would be that if you are in the comments on some sponsored content saying like, yes, I love these pans, I have them myself, TikTok is saying that they can go ahead and basically use your endorsement as an ad itself, and they won't be paying you for it. That's my guess. That's my interpretation. If you have a different interpretation, let me know. Moderation and enforcement. This is the one that we all know where it's going. TikTok can remove or restrict content and suspend or ban accounts to enforce the terms, guidelines, legal requirements, or address security issues with an appeals process available in the platform. And this, goes back to what are we defining as a security issue? What are we defining as the terms and the guidelines? Especially because guidelines, right? A guideline doesn't have to be anything. It don't have to be like rooted in reason. It can be rooted in vibes. And we know what the vibes are here. The company says, quote, "We operate the platform for you and others, and we may work with our affiliates, service providers, and business partners. We customize parts of your experience on the platform to make it more relevant and enjoyable for you. We may take steps to identify and take action against content that may violate our terms, community guidelines, and other conditions or policies to protect you and others in our community," close quote. I've already said my piece. I don't even need to say it again. The U.S.-China framework deal behind the change. The shift in TikTok's U.S. contracting party reflects a major political breakthrough. According to the Associated Press, the U.S. and China reached a framework agreement in September 2025. We're going to skip some of this because we've already talked about it. Now, here's what's interesting is that they didn't fully, in this article, talk about like the very specific wording that's in that terms of service. The wording is pretty spooky. Let me see if I can find it. Let's try this. So this is an article on Wired written by Reese Rogers. Shout out Reese Rogers. Okay, so these are a few things that were added to the TikTok terms and conditions under the new U.S. ownership. First of all, adding precise location tracking. yeah, this is one of the most notable updates in the privacy policy. Before this, the app did not collect the precise GPS-derived location data of US users. Now, if you give TikTok permission to use your phone's location services, the app may collect granular information about your exact whereabouts. Now, yes, to be fair, tracked on some websites like Instagram and X, but maybe you don't use those sites. And also, those sites are not directly owned by the US government the way that TikTok functionally is. So obviously, there's some concern there. Lisa G says, oh, shit, yeah, exactly that. Exactly that. It is pretty spooky for a version of TikTok that is functionally owned by the government to be tracking your precise location. Especially as we all know, there's a lot going on politically right now when it comes to where people are, what people are doing. We see that there's all sorts of organizing happening all over the country. So TikTok now tracking your precise location could get a lot of people into some dangerous situations based off of their political affiliations. And that's like the most diplomatic way I can say that. All right, what else? Tracking AI interactions. Rather than an adjustment, TikTok's policy on AI interactions adds a new topic to the privacy policy document. Users' interactions with any of TikTok's AI tools explicitly falls under data that the service may collect and store. So let's talk about that. This includes any prompts as well as AI-generated outputs. The metadata attached to your interactions with AI tools may be automatically logged. The reason why this one is really interesting is because people use AI for all sorts of reasons. We're all aware of that, right? And people have been getting increasingly intimate with their AIs. People are having very intimate conversations about their marriages, about their health. I mean, we all remember a few months ago when somebody's, I don't remember who, my bad, somebody's AI, Facebook's, was like accidentally publishing things. I think it was Facebook's. It might have been somebody else. Either way, we were all there a few months ago when somebody's AI system was publicly sharing private conversations. We were all there when a few months ago, private conversations were being leaked and people were saying really intimate stuff, talking about cancer diagnoses, talking about trying to break up with their spouse, trying to figure out if they can get into college. People were committing fraud. People were using AI to plan how to unalive people. And so now all of those very intimate conversations that you may be having with any of TikTok's AIs, whether it's chatbots, whether it's creations, image generation, whether it's creating versions of yourself in CapCut, all of those will now be easily accessed by the government. And the reason why I keep saying the government is because TikTok is functionally owned by the government, okay? TikTok is functionally owned by the government. We need to start saying that. The Ellisons are close personal friends of Donald Trump. TikTok is owned by the government. TikTok expands its ad network. So that we kind of all expected, right? We're going to be getting advertised to more aggressively, both on the TikTok platform and outside of the TikTok platform. Funny enough, this one still did not mention, let me check for the word sexuality. No, it's not in here. They really did. Let me look this up. So it's a Mashable article written by Chase DiBenedetto, sick last name. Let's get to it. People have been talking about this a lot. Did we all just agree to give more of our personal information to the social media giant as it bows down to its American owners? According to Benedetto, simple answer is not really. TikTok's updated privacy policy isn't changing the bulk of its existing data collection policies, which previously included collecting data users provide about themselves, including information about sexual and gender orientation, citizenship, and mental health diagnoses. TikTok has reserved the right to scan user-generated content, posts, comments, live streams, audio messages, and other virtual items to collect this information. Okay, we're going to keep reading, but that's very interesting because a lot of people definitely did not clock that. Most people clocked that just now as it's changed hands. So this is apparently the terms and conditions from December 1st, 2025, still under Chinese ownership. And it does say that you disclose information we collect and use, information you disclose in survey responses or user content about your racial or ethnic origin, national origin, religious beliefs, mental or physical health diagnoses, sexual life or sexual orientation, status as transgender or non-binary, citizenship or immigration status, or financial information. We only process such information in order to provide the platform and within other exemptions under applicable law. So yeah, that has always been in there. Look at that. I mean, does it make us feel any better to be giving up that information? Probably not. But at least it's not new, you know? At least you were already doing that. Now, they did go ahead for us and highlight in bold what's different between the old terms and conditions and these new ones. So in the new one, they've added may include sensitive personal information as defined under applicable state privacy laws. And then they also added, we may also collect precise location data depending on your settings and as explained below. So really, the really major change that's happening with this TikTok US ownership is the precise location data. But also, of course, whose hands all that information is in. Maybe it's naive of me, but I don't think that the Chinese government was going to be able to hurt me with that information the way that I do think the US government will be able to. One thing that I really want to know about TikTok US is who's cutting the checks? Who's cutting the checks? Who's dealing with the money? The creator rewards program, is it going to still pay the same? Is the money still coming out the same? Because that would be crazy to me if TikTok is in American hands and then they just start paying everybody less, or just do away with the creator rewards program as a whole. Where is that information? That's what I want to know. Is the United States government going to be paying us through TikTok? What's going on? Who's paying? Who is cutting the money? So that is that topic. All right, we've got a couple quick hits, and then we're ending with the big one, which is Kanye West and the surprise apology that he issued today. All right, so our quick hits, real quick. This is a Hollywood Reporter article by Etan Blessing. Substack CEO unpacks logic of launching a TV app, if you did not know. The Substack CEO basically just said that Substack is now going to have an integrated television app. You'll be able to access it via Apple TV and Google TV. If you're not familiar with Substack, they made their whole bid on the fact that people read. Substack is all about written material, reading what people have written. It is kind of a cross, in my opinion, between like a blog and a newsletter. People use it in various ways. There are a lot of journalists who, after either being fired or quitting of their own volition during this administration, have moved to Substack in order to perform their own independent journalism. There are also a few people that I know who just have like personal newsletters via Substack, but the whole thing was that it's written. That was its whole thing. It's written, people read it, people still read. Look at this. One of the first things in this article, quote, despite what you might hear, people still read. We would know. That's coming from the CEO of Substack. But the quote continues, but they watch video too. And sometimes that video is best on a TV, close quote. So, you know, I have said this many times before. I don't understand why people don't seem to be content with just being the best at what they do. Instagram was the best at photo sharing. Twitter was the best at small pieces of information, small posts. Why did we add videos to Instagram? Why can you now post 1,000-word tweets? What? You guys made your fortune off of the written word. I can understand adding an audio element, which he talks about later in here, about how a lot of people like to listen to the articles. That I can understand. But do we need to be adding video? I don't think that we do, because that's not what the platform was built on. And it just drives me nuts that people, the owners of these companies, can't seem to just like commit to doing what they promised really, really well. That's all I have to say about that. We're going to move on. We're not even going to read the full article because I just told you everything that you really need to know, which is they're adding videos. At that point, right, I'm like, if you want to, as a creator, if you want to be writing things, doing audio and doing video, at that point, I feel like you would just be over on Patreon, because both of these are paid platforms. You subscribe to whoever you're following. If you are on Substack, it's because you want to write. And that's just my 2 cents. Moving on. This quick one. European Union, the latest to investigate Grok. This is a Deadline article by Max Goldbart. Praise God. But let's read. The European Union has become the latest body to investigate X over its Grok AI tool and the creation of sexualized images. Ooh, I hope I can say that word here on TikTok. The European Commission has joined the California Attorney General and UK regulators Ofcom in opening a probe into Grok, which it says will, quote, assess whether the company properly assessed and mitigated risks associated with the deployment of Grok's functionalities into X in the EU, close quote. The answer is no, they did not. The answer is no, they did not. And Elon Musk will tell you that to your face. He probably won't if he's under oath. But Elon Musk has said several times that they did not check all the boxes. They did not look for the guardrails. It's well documented, both from him and from people who have worked from him. I'm pretty sure they even talk about it in the biography that guy wrote about him. Elon Musk does not believe in checking things. Elon Musk does not believe in working safely. He believes in being first. He wants to be first. He doesn't actually care that much about being best. As far as he's concerned, if we can get there first, then we can become best later on. We can iterate and get better, because the fact that we were there first means that we had the advantage. So I'm telling you right now, no, they did not. The European Commission has joined with the California Attorney General and UK regulator Ofcom in opening a probe. We just read that. Separately, the commission has extended its probe, establishing whether Elon Musk's platform, quote, properly assessed and mitigated all systemic risks associated with its recommender systems, including the impact of its recently announced switch to a Grok-based recommender system, close quote. Switching to a Grok-based recommender system is crazy, given the fact that we've all seen Grok get a little unpredictable in the past, okay? We were all there for Mecca Hler, right? When Grok named itself after the furor, we were there. Do we want the digital furor to be making recommendations for content? I don't think so, but we'll continue. Both are being probed under the Digital Services Act. If the site is found to have breached the act, the commission could fine X up to 6% of its global annual turnover. Now that is delicious. That's delicious. If the site is found to have breached the act, the commission could fine X up to 6% of its global annual turnover. I love that. I love that for Europe. I love that for us, because I imagine, I hope, that if they get this hefty fine and they're forced to make changes, that those changes will not only be localized, regionalized. Hopefully those will be global changes. That said, you know, I might be asking for too much, because if X is paid a pretty penny by the US to keep things a certain way, they likely will. The commission's move is the latest setback for X over Grok. Earlier this month, X bowed to pressure and stopped the image tool from editing photos of real people after a backlash around the world to edits of women in revealing clothing. Let's take a minute and be so real here, because this article is being too kind. The problem was not just Grok putting together images of women and revealing clothing. Revealing clothing is actually the wonderful place that we were able to get it to end at. There were nude images being rendered of women. People were going to Grok and using it to create all sort of lewd and lascivious images of people. They were creating lewd and lascivious images of children, lewd and lascivious images of adults with children. It was horrific. It was really, really bad. Not even to mention that prior to all this, right, again, we had Mecca Aichler. We had that time that Grok was helping give people like instructions and ideas on how to unalive a reporter. It was like doxing the reporter, talking about his life. It wrote fan fiction. Grok wrote fan fiction itself about what it wanted to do to that reporter. Grok is not safe. Honey, Grok is not safe for anybody. None of these AIs are safe, but definitely not Grok. Definitely not the one that called itself. Okay. The EU and Musk are far from friendly. In December, X was fined 120 million euro, also known as $142 million, by the Commission due to the deceptive design of its blue checkmark, the lack of transparency of its advertising repository, and the failure to provide access to public data for researchers. I'm smiling because I love it. I love it. I love it. Sensational. X is yet to pay, and many in the US have criticized the EU over the move. Musk has previously called the EU undemocratic and said it should be abolished. I'm sure he thinks that way. First of all, he doesn't understand how democracy works. Like, he functionally does not understand the concept of democracy. But what do we expect from somebody, right, with, blood emerald money in South Africa? Of course, his first idea is just to abolish the EU instead of trying to understand or comply. I am, a little red flagged about X has failed to pay. X is yet to pay. Because if we are still allowing X to operate in the EU, even though they own this giant fine, then fining them again does not feel like a real threat, okay? It feels like it is a symbolic gesture. You're just doing something to say that you did something. So I'll tell you, if they fine them again, I think first one's free. You can't have two. So we're going to have to shut you down over here until you can at least pay your first fine. But that's just my opinion. Okay, we are finally on the topic I cannot wait to discuss. Kanye West. You guys, today, Kanye West issued an apology. Took out a full-page ad in the Wall Street Journal. This article is from Deadline. It's written by Jake Cantor or Contour. I saw this headline. I said, huh? The man who was selling the shirts with the window symbol on them? The man who called himself an Enzy? The man who said, I love Aichler, so what, bish? That man issued an apology. Let's read. Kanye West takes out full-page WSJ ad to apologize for his manic anti-Semitic outbursts. Quote, I am not an NZ. Kanye West, now known as Ye, has taken out an ad in the Wall Street Journal to plead for forgiveness after his anti-Semitic rampage in 2025. Y'all, you were there. We were all there, right? It was everything that I just described. It was literally selling shirts with that horrible symbol on them. I'm pretty sure he took out an ad during the football game. That's what I got. He took out an ad during the Super Bowl that, like, you went to the link and it sold only one thing, and it was a shirt with that symbol on it. It was a time. It was horrible. It was horrific. We all knew that Kanye West was unwell, but even that, to me at least, felt like more than what we expected. I didn't expect us to reach there. In a 750-word statement headlined, quote, to those I've hurt, close quote, the Gold Digger rapper apologized to the Jewish and Black community for his behavior last year. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Ye, who published the apology as he prepares to release new music, said he suffered a, quote, 4-month-long manic episode of psychotic, paranoid, and impulsive behavior that destroyed my life, close quote. During this period, Ye sold $20 shirts with estikas and used X/Twitter to post a series of anti-Semitic posts, including declaring himself to be an NZ. Quote, I love Hitler now. What, bitches? Close quote. There's no punctuation here, so it's hard to know. So it's either now, comma, what, bees? Or it's I love Hitler, comma, now what, bees? Either way, he wrote that and he put it in all caps. An escalation of a previous outburst against Jewish people in 2022, for which he also apologized, and we will talk about that as well. The 2025 comments prompted an outpouring of condemnation from critics, including Piers Morgan and David Schwimmer, who said Ye was spewing, quote, sick hate speech, close quote. He deactivated his X account last February. We're not going to read this right here because what I want to do actually is just read the letter itself. Let's read Kanye West's apology. 25 years ago, I was in a car accident that broke my jaw and caused injury to the right frontal lobe of my brain. At the time, the focus was on the visible damage, the fracture, the swelling, and the immediate physical trauma. The deeper injury, the one inside my skull, went unnoticed. Comprehensive scans were not done, neurological exams were limited, and the possibility of a frontal lobe injury. Oh, I just lost my place. And the possibility of a frontal lobe injury was never raised. I wasn't properly diagnosed until 2023. That medical oversight caused serious damage to my mental health and led to my bipolar type 1 diagnosis. So, taking a pause right here, right? What we're getting from Ye is that the car crash that made him famous, let's be very clear, right? Like, he was a up and coming, a very prominent, very talented producer, but that car crash, wiring his jaw shut, and then he released through the wire, and you could hear him rapping through the wire on that track. That's what launched him into fame. That very same car crash is one that caused brain damage to him and developed the bipolar type 1 that we have all seen and all known intuitively, but have never officially had a diagnosis of. Bipolar disorder comes with its own defense system, denial. When you're manic, you don't think you're sick. You think everyone else is overreacting. You feel like you're seeing the world more clearly than ever, when in reality, you're losing your grip entirely. Once people label you as crazy, you feel as if you cannot contribute anything meaningful to the world. It's easy for people to joke and laugh it off when in fact this is a very serious, debilitating disease you can die from. According to the World Health Organization and Cambridge University, people with bipolar disorder have a life expectancy that is shortened by 10 to 15 years on average and a 2x to 3x higher all-cause mortality rate than the general population. This is on par with severe heart disease, type 1 diabetes, HIV, and cancer, all lethal and fatal if left untreated. The scariest thing about this disorder is how persuasive it is when it tells you you don't need help. It makes you blind, but convinced you have insight. You feel powerful, certain, unstoppable. I lost touch with reality. Things got worse the longer I ignored the problem. I said and did things I deeply regret. Some of the people I loved the most, I treated the worst. You endured fear, confusion, humiliation, and exhaustion of trying to have someone who was, at times, unrecognizable. Looking back, I became detached from my true self. In that fractured state, I gravitated toward the most destructive symbol I could find, the Estica, and even sold t-shirts bearing it. One of the difficult aspects of having bipolar type 1 are the disconnected moments, many of which I still cannot recall, that led to poor judgment and reckless behavior that oftentimes feels like an out-of-body experience. I regret and am deeply mortified by my actions in that state and am committed to accountability, treatment, and meaningful change. It doesn't excuse what I did, though. I am not an NZ or an anti-Semite. I love Jewish people. To the Black community, which held me down through all of the highs and lows and the darkest of times. The Black community is unquestionably the foundation of who I am. I am so sorry to have let you down. I love us. In early 2025, I fell into a 4-month-long manic episode of psychotic, paranoid, and impulsive behavior that destroyed my life. As the situation became increasingly unsustainable, there were times I didn't want to be here anymore. Having bipolar is notable. There are some typos in here, but I didn't write it. He did. Having bipolar is a notable state of constant mental illness. When you go into a manic episode, you are ill at that point. When you are not in an episode, you are completely normal, and that's when the wreckage from the illness hits the hardest. Hitting rock bottom a few months ago, my wife encouraged me to finally get help. I have found comfort in Reddit forums of all places. Same. Different people speak of being in manic or depressive episodes of a similar nature. I read their stories and realized that I was not alone. It's not just me who ruins their entire life once a year despite taking meds every day and being told by the so-called best doctors in the world that I am not bipolar, but merely experiencing, quote, symptoms of autism. Close quote. My words as a leader in my community have global impact and influence. In my mania, I lost complete sight of that. As I find my new baseline and new center through an effective regime of medication, therapy, exercise, and clean living, I have newfound much-needed clarity. I am pouring my energy into positive, meaningful art, music, clothing, design, and other new ideas to help the world. I am not asking for sympathy or free pass, though I aspire to earn your forgiveness. I write today simply to ask for your patience and understanding as I find my way home. With love, yay. Okay. So, there's a lot in here. A few things, right? So starting from the top, right, we talk about this bipolar type 1 diagnosis, which again, we all knew, right? We all saw that was there and that Ye needed help with that. It is a little crazy to me, honestly, that he went so long undiagnosed. But if we are to take this letter for truth, then it sounds like he was constantly being misdiagnosed as only autistic. And I say only instead of just misdiagnosed as autistic because I do believe from interactions that we've witnessed that Kanye West is likely also on the spectrum. There are some signs. I am not a doctor. I can't diagnose people. But the signs were there. And so it seems like people thought that's all that was going on there, or at least the people who were supposed to be diagnosing him. And that is what led to this going on for so long. Combined with, right, the fact that he was routinely having manic episodes. And if while you're manic, you're like, there ain't nothing wrong with me, then you've got a lot of things working against your health, your improvement. So, I really appreciate, obviously, first of all, that he just owned up to, I did a horrible thing. I picked a horrible symbol. I was offending Jewish people. I don't hate Jewish people. I think it's good that he did all that. This right here is the part that actually floored me. This is the part that I did not expect. And this is the part that makes me think either Kanye had a really great publicist help him with this, or Kanye did this by himself. But I don't think an average publicist was involved with this apology, because issuing an apology to the Black community is something that an average publicist wouldn't have thought to do. Kanye West is correct in that the Black community has held him down. The Black community has been rocking with him for a very long time, despite the fact that, the past 10 years, he has been atrocious to the Black community. The comments about slavery being a choice, all of the people he's chosen to partner, the contents of some of his lyrics, his raps, right, have been pretty anti-Black, or at the very least very pro-white. So I think it is so smart. I hope it's also genuine, but I think nothing else, it's so smart to apologize to the Black community, because worst comes to worst, right? If he's really fully burned the bridges with the rest of Hollywood, right? The rest of entertainment, if white Hollywood is not going to take him back, he could potentially find a home still in Black Hollywood. And as my people know, you can still make a pretty check even if your only audience is us. That said, though, I just appreciate this. Am I saying that I'm about to go bump Kanye after we get off of here? No. But do I apologize him straight up acknowledging that the Black community are the people who he's betrayed the deepest? I do. I really, really do appreciate that. What else do I have written down here? He's making more art. Channeling his energy into positive, meaningful art, music, clothing, design, and other new ideas to help the world. If you want to be pessimistic, you can say that's why we got this apology in the first place. It's because he's putting stuff out and he wants people to buy it. If you want to be optimistic, you can say that all of these interventions he's currently embracing, the medication, the exercise, the eating well. He said clean living, I believe. Yep, clean living. So we can intuit that to mean no drugs, no alcohol. The optimistic interpretation is that all of those things have put him back in a place where he can create again, where he can make art, and he is using that art for good. He's doing good things with it. He's expressing himself, and he wants to share that with the world, regardless of whether or not we purchase it. It's just better to share it than to keep it internally. Obviously, we have to take all of this with a little bit of grain of salt, because Kanye West has, as they mentioned up here, he has apologized before when he went on his anti-Semitic run the first time in 2022. Here it is. He went on that run the first time and he apologized. And we still got another one that was much worse last year. So I don't think it's wise for anybody to receive this apology and think that things are definitely going to be better moving forward, because as he said himself, there's stuff working against him, right? Including his own mania. But hopefully he finally has the correct assembly of interventions and he will be able to atone and really repair his life. I think, first of all, I am never quick to forgive people who do harm, especially if they do physical harm. Not that Kanye did physical harm, but he was perpetuating violence that may have inspired other people to do physical harm. Anyway, I'm never quick to forgive somebody who has caused harm, especially physical harm, but also just mental, verbal, emotional harm. That said, I do think that we, as a country, are going to have to learn what it means to forgive somebody who's done a terrible thing. Because the era that we are in right now is one in which a lot of people are doing terrible things. And some of them will never wake up from it. Some of them will never apologize and forget those people. But some of them will and have woken up from it. Including that girl. Who's that girl? She had Elon Musk baby, and now she's suing him. St. Clair. Oh my God, hold on. I'm on the wrong thing. I'm in the wrong tab. Hold on. Okay, hold on. That girl, her last name, if anybody knows it, put it in the chat. St. Clair. Oh my God, my nails are too long to be doing this. Elon Musk, see, look, she's coming up. Ashley St. Clair. Ashley St. Clair was a far-right MAGA influencer. She was spewing horrible things. She published a anti-trans children's book. She had Elon Musk's baby. And as of right now, she is in the middle of atoning for all of it. She has since woken up. She is like, what I did was horrible. It caused so much harm. And I am deeply, deeply apologetic. Mind you, she could have taken like $15 million from Elon to shut up and disappear and never talk ever again. And she turned that down because she is legitimately remorseful. So I do think that, unfortunately, with how radicalized everything is right now, with how many people are doing and saying terrible things, a very important lesson that we're going to have to learn is how to forgive those people when they wake up. I don't think it has to be immediate, right? I'm not bumping Kanye the moment we get off of here, but I am open to his redemption arc. Yeah, so that is it. That is it for today. That's all the news that I have for y'all. We had some really crazy headlines in here. The Kanye one is, I'm really glad we ended on that because I really appreciated it. Lisa G says, thank you. Looking forward to the next one. You're welcome. Thanks for joining. Thanks for sticking around. Yeah, as you guys know on my page, I do Hollywood and entertainment news, commentary and breakdowns, but sometimes I'm not in the mood to do a full commentary, a full breakdown. Sometimes I just want to like talk my shit a little bit, you know. I just want to read, get my raw thoughts off, and get out of here. So thanks for hanging out, you guys. I really, really appreciated this. I will see you guys on the next one, which I can't tell you what day that's going to be, but hopefully it will be this week. I have a lot going on when it comes to travel and my family. All right, that's it. Bye.